If you want your FOV to look exactly like a real-life GT3 race car, this is the video for you. Let me show you how I do it. Welcome back to the channel, but if it's your first time here, my name is Daniel Morad, and I want to share my 27 years of racing experience with you and try to make your simulators at home feel as close to the real-life race car as possible. And I realize I'm in such a unique position to be able to race cars and drive on the simulator and bring all of that knowledge and feedback to you guys so you can make your sims feel as realistic as possible at home. So let's jump on the rig and I'll walk you through all the steps I take to make my sim feel as realistic as possible in terms of the FOV and what it looks like behind the wheel. The first step to getting correct FOV is actually your screen setup. You have to have the correct placement for your screens, and for this, we're going to be using triple monitors. That's the setup I'm using, and this is how you're going to get the ultimate realism and immersion. And some of this stuff will be applicable to you as well if you are using a single monitor. So first thing, screen setup. Distance and height. For me, I always extend my hand out and I try to make the screen feel like it's just about an arm's reach away, because in the real race car, I can more or less extend my arm out and touch the DDU, the dash. So it's not an exact science, but that's kind of what I go off of, just to feel like I have the correct distance. And then in terms of height, it doesn't matter what the relation is off of your floor. It's all about your eyeballs. Where do your eyeballs sit? Because everyone's a different height. My eyeballs are dead center in the center of the screen, 73 centimeters away from the screen. So my eyeballs, 73 centimeters. Ideally, you want to wrap the screen around so that the edges of your side screens are arriving at your peripheral vision. So if you have smaller monitors, you want to bring your screen a little bit closer and make sure that those side screens are just at 90 degrees. If you draw a line outward from your eyeballs, you want it to be exactly off the edge of your eyeball placement. Okay, so now that we have that, we've kind of established the baseline. So the parameters are set there. Now let's go into software. In iRacing, and this can work for any sim, as long as you know your camera settings, but for iRacing, we're going to set up the screen. So we'll go to settings. We're going to go to display. And the first thing you'll do is, of course, you should already have your resolution and all that stuff set up. If you don't, Dan Suzuki has an amazing triple screen setup that I even followed. You go into your DX11 settings and you can customize that to run Windows borderless. It's just the best way to run it, in my opinion. I'm not running on NVIDIA Surround. So we're not going to talk about that. What we're going to talk about is the monitor setup. So 3 curved screens. I'm using Samsung G5. They're 32-inch, 1000R curved, 165 hertz panels. These are great for me. They're 2K resolution. I set them up as 3 curved screens because it's 1000R. Monitor width, 32-inch screen. I've measured it. It's 710 millimeters in terms of like the screen width, the monitor width. Bezel width, I'm using 0. And the reason for that is because I have a bezel-free kit. I use the ROG bezel-free kit, and you might be wondering, how do you use them on a 32-inch screen? Well, I use my very trusty double-sided tape. It's clear double-sided tape, and to make this work correctly, I actually had to pull them off of the monitor. So I stuck double-sided tape, I cut little squares out, stuck them on the corners of the bezel-free kit, and pulled them off of the monitor by like about a centimeter or so. And the reason I did that is because if it was too close to the screen, because it's such an aggressive curve and the angle is not that amazing on the corners of my screen, I was seeing the bezel. The light wasn't refracting enough at the corners. So I had to pull the light refractor kit away from my screens a little bit further so that it blends my bezel together. So I get that immersive setup. So bezel width, 0. I'm using render scene using 3 projections. So 3 individual projections, and then NVIDIA SMP, I have that on as well. So viewing distance, I've measured 73 or 730 millimeters away from my eyeballs to the middle screen. That's how I arrived at this measurement. 680 millimeters for the radius of curve. That was kind of a guess. I just did a little trial and error, and I kept changing the value because I started out at 1000 based on 1000R, and then I slowly went down more and more because it didn't look correct. So I started making it look more correct because I have a little angle in the corner of my screens. And I just kind of fine-tuned it like that, carefully measured by eye, very scientific. Of course, everything we're doing here is a science. So 680 millimeters, that's what I arrived at. Now, because we have all this, let's go ahead and compute the FOV. So the FOV is now saying 171 degrees. So that's what we're going to go with. 171 degrees. Bam. This is what it looks like now. It went from super zoomed in to pretty correct, actually. But we're not going to stop there. We're going to go into a very, very detailed, in-depth secret here. This is the secret sauce. So if you haven't mapped it and you are using the default camera controls, you're going to hit Control F12 on your keyboard. But of course, I'm not doing that. I've mapped mine to my button box. This is the PSP from Precision Sim Engineering. I have my camera button controls, or camera box controls, and everything I need is right here. So let's just go ahead and make sure that we are on the default camera. I'm not changing my driver.
Hello everyone, welcome to another video. Now today we're going to be taking a very brief look at Project Motor Racing. And there's a reason why it's going to be very brief. Because I'm going to cut right to the chase. It's pants. Now, like many of you guys, I've been sucked in because of all the hype. Amazing physics, amazing handling, realistic weather, an unbelievable selection of cars and tracks. And some of that is true. But the things that are important to me are just not there. Now, I know there's a bit of a backstory with Ian Bell, Project Cars, Project Motor Racing. To be honest, I don't care. I was on a bit of a sim racing break when Project Cars 2 and 3 was out, so I missed it entirely. So I'm taking Project Motor Racing on face value. And for me, it's got to do something that all the other simulators out there don't do. Now, admittedly, I'm on a pre-release version of Project Motor Racing, but it launches officially in a couple of days' time. And I thought I was actually playing the build that was going to be released, but I looked at Twitter and Ian Bell said that the people that have been playing this and testing this aren't on the build that's going to be released to the public. And I've replied to him saying, what's the point then? Anybody that plays this now is just going to highlight the flaws and what needs fixed. So I'm going to be giving you my opinion on the build as it is now. And I'm hoping, fingers crossed, for Project Motor Racing's sake, that it changes dramatically from today to when it's released. So let's talk about the positives first of all. So visually, I think it looks really nice from inside the cockpit. But any footage that you might have seen on YouTube of the cars externally, TV cameras, chase cameras, in the build that I've got, it doesn't look anything like that. It looks like a game from 2008. But in the cockpit, it looks really nice. I am running it at 4K resolution, but with DLSS and frame gen turned on. Without those, the frame rate wasn't very good, although it has been pretty stable. And the other positive thing for me is the audio. Well, the car audio, the engine, the transmission whine, the turbos, the curbs, I think they all sound really good, but the tyre noise is absolutely pants, and you can't adjust that. Now, another positive, I suppose, is the car selection. There's a really good, diverse selection of cars. There's pretty much something on there which will tickle your fancy. Track selection as well is pretty strong, but there's a couple of unknown tracks on there that I'd never seen before, such as Derby and Northampton. Obviously, that's Donington and Silverstone. Need to get your finger in your pocket to get those licenses. But thankfully, all the cars have all got their proper names, so they all appear to be officially licensed. Now, unfortunately, that's the positives done with. A simulator can have all the cars it wants. It can have all the tracks it wants. You know, it can have an amazing selection. If the handling and physics is bad, I'm not going to play it. And like I mentioned at the start, Project Motor Racing has got to do something that other simulators don't do. And I've got to tell you, it doesn't do anything that the other simulators don't do. And what it does do, driving-wise, it does it worse. Now, firstly, we'll talk about force feedback, which is a bit of a hit and miss. Sometimes it feels really nice when going over curbs. You know, when going down the straight, you can feel the detail from the road. But when you're mid-corner, there's nothing. It's dead. Feels like a spring. I have absolutely no idea what the front of the car's doing on corner entry, and I've got absolutely no idea what the rear is doing on corner exit. When driving this, I'm literally reacting to what I can see. And it's not like I'm on some cheap, like belt-driven wheel, entry-level wheel. I'm on a SimuCube 2 Pro, and I've tried various different profiles, and it's not great. Every other simulator on the market, in my opinion, does it better. Now, on the 4th of November, Ian Bell, the guy behind this title, tweeted saying he couldn't contain himself and saying that we were in for a treat with the physics. Well, let me talk about the physics. Now, for me, a sim racing title has got to do the basics. And the basics for me is weight transfer. You know, talking about mass. You move mass from one place to another. Well, there's going to be a reaction. So when cornering, when braking, when accelerating, when moving the weight of the car around, the car should react accordingly. You know, when trail braking, moving the weight over the front of the car should bite in, and that should make the rear of the car loose. But I haven't had a feeling of weight transfer in this title. And I took the Mazda MX-5 around Lime Rock Park, a car which is all about mechanical grip. And obviously weight transfer in cars such as the MX-5 is key because you don't have any downforce. But there was absolutely nothing. Lifting off the gas to try and get the weight over the front of the car did nothing. The only impact I could have when lapping around Lime Rock Park in the MX-5 was adjusting the speed so I could get around the turn. What I did with the accelerator and the brake didn't really matter. And it didn't feel like there was any engine braking at all. In fact, I actually thought that my throttle pedal was kind of calibrated incorrectly, and you know, it was showing an input when it wasn't. It felt like I was still accelerating. It was weird. Same story with other cars, but not as much because you do have a little bit of aero. But I didn't feel that how I was driving the car and the input, you should be able to drive over the limit. And that's something that I kind of disagree with. You know, where do you define the limit? The limit for me is before you lose control. It's not when you're sideways. But there's been times when I've been driving in Project Motor Racing when I've genuinely been over the limit. And in any other simulator or in a car in real life, I would have lost control. But Project Motor Racing has got it back. And I should have been able to get those cars back under control. I drove an old Mercedes prototype around the Nordschleife, like trying to drive it really badly to try and get the car to lose control. I was trying to get it to pop out the carousel. It didn't want to go out the carousel. It was kind of stuck in there. Eventually I did get it out, but it was just so unrealistic. Now, again, on the 4th of November, Ian Bell. You tell me if that's excellent. So I feel really bad, a bit let down. But I genuinely think Gran Turismo handled better. So I don't know where it sits.
This is rough. Project Motor Racing is really rough. The spiritual successor of the Project Cars series is arriving on the 25th of November on PC and console. As for disclosure, Straight 4 Studios sent a key for review. I've went to Zurich in May for the PMR announcement, and I also have an affiliate link if you want to get PMR. All opinions are my own as always, and that's going to be abundantly clear. In this state, the game is a disappointment. Before going to the review, a massive thank you to all the viewers, Project Cars, coming largely from the same team that was Slightly Mad Studios, a sim that has a single player career mode, we will talk about that in a moment, competitive multiplayer with crossplay, a varied roster with around 50 cars that covers some vintage GT cars, spec racers, and modern GTs. This way, there could be more focus. Tracks-wise, there's a total of 18 tracks, including some popular ones like Nürburgring and Nordschleife, Daytona, Sebring, and Bathurst. Some of the tracks like Imola, Monza, and Silverstone, and a few others, are debadged with the names changed, but otherwise they remain the same. Sadly, tracks like Brands Hatch, Suzuka, Le Mans, or Laguna Seca are missing. This review will center itself on the PC version, and I'm not going to talk about the multiplayer. That will be for another video because at this point there are no games to try. The price for the base game is €60, £52 or $60. This will also include the GT bundle when it comes out. There's a version of the game that comes also with the season pass that will cover a year worth of DLC, coming for €90, £80 or $90. As things on the internet are, I know some of you will be saying, "Oh, but this is a preview or early access for press and the issues will likely be resolved." And I'll say, probably they will, some of them maybe even at launch, but I doubt that some of what I'm going to mention is going to be corrected by the time the game launches on the 25th. I love to start the reviews nowadays talking about the user interface. In this case, it is simplistic, but somewhat easy to understand, but long gone is the pizzazz that the Project Cars 2 UI adds, even if it was a little more complicated. But that one was definitely better to look at. PMR's user interface is well laid out. It's easy to find settings in general. It could be better for the bindings and for the force feedback. And speaking of bindings, my IMSIM Talento pedals weren't recognized, and I know that some others are also having issues with the equipment compatibility. What is recognized is the composer, the absolute GOAT called Steven Baystad, the Hans Zimmer of sim racing original soundtracks, that once again brings a kick-ass soundtrack with presence, drama, orchestration, and gravitas, with some bangers of Project Cars coming back like Spa, which could be the equivalent of Moon Over the Castle in sim racing. Even if you don't buy the game, go to Spotify and listen to the soundtrack. You shouldn't be missing on this. I can absolutely guarantee you that it's well worth your while. One of the main focus of the game, and something that was very eagerly expected, is specially done for single-player racers, which will be the career mode. Project Motor Racing takes an interesting approach that in some ways reminds me of Codemasters' race driving grid, and deserves its praise. In terms of difficulty, the career mode has many ways to ramp it up, and it's not just using the AI's difficulty against you, because each race will generate revenue and will have a cost of entry. So the model of generating revenue will depend on what variables you want to control and the risk you want to take overall. You don't know if you're going to succeed at all? Just get the sponsorship model that pays for the entry fees but takes a larger cut. If you want to win more of the prize money, risk it all with the model that pays for winning championships or be in the podium. You'll have to buy the cars, repair the damage done at the races. By the way, the damage is not persistent between sessions. Pay for the entries and then reinvest in higher models so you can go to other championships. Also, the game doesn't really bar you from starting at whatever championship you may want to enter, as there's an option for how much you want to start with. So if you want really more difficulty besides the sponsoring model, you can start with the minimal amount and race something like the 964 or the spec Mias de Miata. And this is an interesting take on the career mode. It feels more like team management light, while Project Cars 2 felt more like driver management. In the career mode, you get a regular session with practice, qualifying, and racing, and then you have to race against the AI, which are some of the biggest idiots I've seen out there. Rennsport AI was absolutely moronic. This one is absolutely unaware of your existence or simply does not care that you are there at all. The AI is impossible to race side to side. They'll stick to the racing line and that's it. If you are there, well, too bad. Get bonked. It goes to a point, and let's say you need to rejoin on the racing line and you are accelerating, the car is slow, and even if the AI has all the time of the world to avoid you, the AI will just kill you on the racing line, which is pretty dope, I suppose. Also, racing can be incredibly frustrating because every single track out is a 2 seconds penalty. You were off just a little bit, 2 seconds. Were you thrown out? Well, that's 2 seconds. If you spin and lost control, well, that's 2 seconds. It's like Oprah, but instead of a car, it's 2 seconds. Everyone gets 2 seconds. And this gets old really soon. The damage model is simplified. There's a visual part of it and there's also a physical part of it. And it's also very inconsistent as well. There's cases where hard hits carry very little damage, if any damage at all, while soft hits done by the AI will say heavy damage with performance busting or race destroying impacts the norm, making racing the AI in this title incredibly frustrating from start to finish. And that also includes in practice, where once again they're absolute morons. Also, I have found that the AI at 100% has good pace. However, when you overtake them and let's say you got them for a second or so, they simply lose interest and start compacting and be on a line like they were on Gran Turismo AI. There's much better AI done at the moment. LMU, iRacing,